characteristics of life. We're going to review what those characteristics are, right? So who can remind me what our first characteristic of life is? What was our first one? Who remembers what the first characteristic of life is? So remember, this should be in our notes. So we should be able to go right back to our notes, and we have our list of 9 characteristics of life. So you can tell me whether or not. Thank you, Zamari. The first one is that it can grow, okay? So the first characteristic of life is that it grows. Who can remind me what the second characteristic of life is? Yeah, shout out everybody going back to those notes, because I know we set up our notebooks nice and organized. So who can remind me what our second characteristic of life is that we talked about? Yes, Julia, it eats, but also, in other words, it needs energy, right? So in some things, they get their energy from eating. Some plants through photosynthesis get their energy through light, sun. But at the same time, it needs energy, okay? Our next characteristic of life we talked about is that it needs water. Thank you. I love how Zamari is on it. She must have her notes on point, right? What is our fourth characteristic of life, right? And Deshaun put breathes, but because it breathes, we also talk about that being the exchange of gases, right? So we talk about like when humans, when they breathe, they inhale oxygen, they exhale CO2, and that is their exchange of gas, right? Our fifth characteristic of life, can somebody raise their hand and share what their fifth characteristic of life is, if you remember? Who remembers our fifth characteristic of life? Julia, you remember what the fifth one was?
The fifth one was eliminates waste.
Yes, eliminates waste, right? So it has the ability to eliminate waste, right? And our sixth characteristic of life was that it reproduces, right? So we just talked about the reproduction, okay? Our seventh characteristic of life was needs a suitable living environment. Eighth was it responds to the environment or to stimuli. And our last characteristic of life, who remembers what our last characteristic of life is? This is the ninth one that we talked about. Go ahead, Julia.
They're made up of cells.
Exactly. It was made of cells. So that was our last characteristic of life. It was made of cells. So, all right, here we're going to play a little game real quick. All right. So I need everybody to make sure they're participating right now. And here's what I need you to do, okay? So I'm going to read off the characteristic of life. And so far, what we've learned about bacteria, I want you to be able to tell me, yes, bacteria has it, or no, bacteria doesn't, all right? Because we're not sure. We're still trying to figure out if bacteria is considered a living or non-living thing, right? So we're going to say yes if it has one of these characteristics with a thumbs up, or we're going to say no if it doesn't have one of these characteristics with a thumbs down, okay? You ready? Everybody good to go? We good? Guys can get a head nod if we're all ready? Ready? Great. So first characteristic of life. Can bacteria grow? Yes or no? Can they grow? Thank you, Kennedy. Thank you, Deshaun. Thank you, Zamari. Thank you, Kalia. Thank you, Kelvin. Yes, as we know, bacteria can grow because we saw that bacteria it multiplies, right? It gets bigger and it grows, right? The next thing, does bacteria need energy? Do you think it needs energy? Does bacteria need energy? Seeing some yeses, seeing some nos, seeing some not even paying attentions. Yes, it does. It does need energy, right? So bacteria needs something to eat so that way it can continue to multiply, right? So it eats other bacteria so it can keep growing, okay? The next thing was it needs water. Does bacteria need water? thumbs up if you think it does. Thumbs down. See some thumbs down, some thumbs up. Yes, it does need water, right? So when we saw that it was in the dish, it was the water was in the dish, so that's how it continued to multiply because it was in the water, okay? And then we saw exchange gases. Does bacteria exchange gases? So far from what we know, does it exchange gas? Bacteria, yes, no? Leah, how do you know exchange gases? How do you know that? Listen. I got you good.
I know it exchanged gases because it need all these things to multiply and stuff. And I don't know how to explain it because, like, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it.
So
But it's
actually,
like, oh, I don't know how to explain it.
okay. So actually, we don't know if it exchanges gases yet. We haven't gone over that part. So we're going to keep learning more about bacteria to see whether or not it can exchange gases. But if I had to guess, I would say, maybe, who knows? We got to figure it out, right? And then the next thing is, does it eliminate waste? Can bacteria eliminate waste? Thumbs up or thumbs down? Kennedy saying no. So we also still are waiting to see whether or not it eliminates waste. All right. And then the sixth one is, can bacteria reproduce? Thumbs up or thumbs down? Can bacteria reproduce? Thank you, Kalia. Thank you, Kennedy. Thank you, Zamari. Thank you, Kyra. Yes, it can reproduce. We just learned. We just saw that when bacteria is exposed, it can keep reproducing. All right. And it also doesn't need a suitable living environment. And we also learned that yes, it does need that because we know that it needs to be in a place where it's exposed, so that way it can continue to grow and keep multiplying. And because it needs a suitable living environment to multiply, we learned that it can respond to the environment, to stimuli. And the last one is yes, it is made of cells because we looked at the microscope and we saw the small microcells that make up our bacteria. Okay? So with that being said, second. So here's the last thing that we're going to learn about. And I want you guys, for your exit ticket, I want you guys to put it in the chat. So the evidence of life through food, right? So yogurt is made by adding bacteria to milk, all right? So when we have milk, once you add some different bacteria and different cultures to it, that's what breaks it down and it turns it into yogurt, right? So they break down the sugars in the milk, use it for food, and they release lactic acid as a waste or process of fermentation, okay? So Greek yogurt is sour, sugars in milk, lactose, lactic acid, which is the waste, is sour, and this makes yogurt, okay? So if yogurt is an evidence, or if this is the type of food that is evidence of life and bacteria, type in the chat to me, what are some foods that you think are made through bacteria, right? What kind of foods do you think are made through bacteria? That's going to be our exit ticket for today. What foods do you think are made through bacteria?